Hello, my name is Frederick Rogers and I'm going to talk to you today about two things. We're going to talk first about faith and we're going to talk about work. And we're going to speak about how those two things together will get you the desires that you want. First, I want to let you know before we go too far into this conversation that faith without work is dead. Regardless of what religion you practice, whether it be the studies of Moses and the Torah, of Jesus and the Gospel, of Muhammad and the Quran, or any of the other thousands of religions that are practiced around the world, what you will find at the center of all religions is faith. So, today we're going to talk about what exactly is faith. Why is it that some faithful people tend to reap more benefits from being faithful, while other faithful people never see their dreams and hope materialize despite their faithfulness? I'm going to share with you a parable to illustrate how faith has affected one of my friends. My friend does his deeds. He prayed, he asked God for direction, and yet he still did not get what he wanted. Something had to change. But let's examine the dictionary definition of faith. The American Dictionary defines faith as complete trust and confidence in someone or something. Religious faith extends that. It's a belief in God or in the doctrine of a religion based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof. That's pretty deep. The American Dictionary goes on and define work as activities that's involved mental or physical efforts done in order to achieve a purpose or result. Hold on to both of those definitions because later in this discussion we're going to show where those two things must come together. So there's this friend of mine who turned his life over to God in 2004. So over the next 10 years, he would be the kind of Christian that you want. The one that shows up to church on time. The one that's always tithing. A member of the choir that leads Bible study. And always tithing more than his share. He's a praying man who never lost sight that when he gets on his knees, that is his quiet conversation and he can be honest with God. But what would happen over the next 10 years would make him call into question if God's promise is real. See, my friend got told in 2014 that he would have to retire from the military in the next 18 months. Shocking. But the first thing that military members do is have to define where are we going to settle down at and how are we going to get there and buy a house. So what he done, he took this information and he took it straight to God in prayer. A year went by, praying, talking to God, asking God to step in and show favor. But nothing happened. So one day, he and I was having lunch, and while sitting there, the discussion came up. And he talked to me deeply about him securing a loan to get a mortgage so that ultimately he can find a place for him and his family to live. And he told me that he's been doing what God asked him to do, but for some reason, God hasn't showed up, and he's starting to get weary and a little nervous because the time is drawing near. So I told him, I said, well, let's examine that. Because God's promise is still real. So have you done the necessary work so that God can step in and help you help yourself? So he said, man, I'm in the church. I said, but in this one, God's going to need you to work on saving money for a down payment. God's going to also need you to step in and work on your credit score. God's going to need you to go sit down with the mortgage counselor and get in explicit details what will be necessary for you to qualify for a home loan. Have you done those things? He said, no, man, I've been praying about it. I said, well, faith is good, but it has to be met with work. So we concluded that lunch, and I reminded him on our drive back to the office that you can pray, but faith without work is dead. Quietly, we departed each other's path that day. A year would go by. Quietly, he was behind the scenes doing the work, working on his credit score, paying off high interest rate credit cards, went and talked to a mortgage counselor, got his VA certification, went house shopping and started claiming it. And he put that work in conjunction with his prayers, and something beautiful happened. Just 3 days ago, prior to me having to give this speech, he got the call from the lending institution, said, you've been approved on this 3,000 square feet home that you desire to put your family in Orlando, Florida. People, I'm going to conclude what it is that I'm talking to you about by saying this. God is still in the delivering business. He will deliver on his promise. Don't give up on your faith and your prayers. But you have to understand that as God clear your mind and make things possible, that you have to hold on to your faith, but it has to be encompassed with unrelenting work. So on this life journey, when life comes around and knocks you to the canvas, you make sure that you land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up, and every setback is nothing more than a setup for a comeback. And when the angels of heaven come calling for you, it won't be questioned whether you've done right by people, and the desires of your heart will be manifested and you will get exactly what you want. Do these things, and may God continue to bless you and your family today and forevermore. Thank you.